ഭാവനയില്ലാത്ത ഒരാൾക്ക് ഒരു കണ്ണിൽ നോക്കി സ്നേഹത്തോടുകൂടി കണ്ണിൽ നോക്കി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സ്പർശിച്ച് ഒന്ന് കെട്ടിപ്പിടിക്കാൻ കഴിയും. അതൊക്കെ ഇന്നത്തെ അർത്ഥത്തിലെ കലയാണ്.
നമ്മുടെ ഉത്സവത്തിലെ ഓരോ വിത്തിൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിലുള്ളതും ഓരോ കർഷകനെ സംരക്ഷിക്കുന്ന കയ്യിലെടുക്കുന്ന കർഷകൻ്റെ ഉള്ളിലുള്ളതെന്നുള്ള ആ ബന്ധം തിരിച്ചറിയാൻ കഴിയുന്നത് അതിലൂടെയാണ് വളരെയധികം ഒരു
Let me come to your wound, heal myself, is an art event presented here. Is result of around 3 years of immersive engagement with Farmers Collective. 5 creative people engaged for the last 3 years with this group of farmers. They are Azis T.M, a visual artist who worked with me in a number of art projects in the past. Then Pratheesh MP, a poet, and Jayadevan also is a poet, and Sivadas Poilkavu, a theatre person. We spent periodically a few days in every 3 months visiting different communities of this collective, which has more than 5,000 families, about 25,000 people. For the last 15 years, they've been gathering seeds, native seeds which was nearly extinct, nurturing them and preserving them. So this show is graced by a few thousands of seeds, and I see the strength of this installation is the presence of those seeds and presence of those people who have been preserving them. When we thought of doing this show in the initial months, we had our own forms in our mind. And those forms were impacted by the art practices which we had been doing it for the last 25-30 years, and the sensibilities arriving at forms and arriving at a vocabulary and so on. But by end of the first year, spending time with them, working with them, going to the field, we realized working on those forms would be an indulgence just for our own artistic satisfaction, but have very little relevance to the community with whom we are being closely engaging with. And the purpose of this show is to strengthen this community. It is not to an outside urban community, but to the farmers themselves. So what we presented here are not works of imagination, but the works that these farmers have gifted us.
Federal Alliance Kerala has been organizing the Seed Festival since 2012. So what you are seeing here is the 9th edition of the Seed Festival. What started off on a very modest scale, but what started off with an urgency in terms of conserving our seeds has today truly achieved the dimensions of a conservation movement. The Seed Festival has come to assume a significant place in the agrarian calendar of Kerala and South India. The variety of seeds that the Western Ghats holds the endangered nature of quite a lot of those seeds in the Malabar hill tracts of the Western Ghats have all come to light because of the Seed Festival. What makes this year's Seed Fest unique is also the involvement of a team of artists. They have been following us for the last 3 seed festivals, seeing how this event and how this coming together of farmers is actually playing out, not necessarily only at the Seed Fest venue, but even more importantly in the herds and farms of these farmers. This unique interaction, what they have come to call as artistic immersion or aesthetic immersion, has resulted in the installations arrayed in the Seed Fest venue. Against the backdrop of about 4,500 farmers whose conservation ethos is reflected in these Seed Fest stalls, are installed about 10 installations. What touched us farmers was the humility with which these artists came to this, approached us with this project. They didn't come down from above to redeem farmers. They didn't come with their artistic eye to capture the aesthetics of farming community and showcase it elsewhere. They basically came with the idea of an aesthetic immersion. In fact, it was titled beautifully. It said, "Let me come to your wounds to heal myself." Generally, you go to someone's wounds to heal those wounds. But in staying with the trials and tribulations of these farmers, in staying with their little joys and with their, with the seeds that they preserve and the ones that they sprout, in seeing the produce and in seeing the abundance that they celebrate even in the smallness of their produce, they were healing themselves. This humility, which has been the hallmark of these installations, is reflected also in the way farmers have been able to relate to these installations. Generally, you don't think the farming community is into highbrow art. But the effort to, at every stage, shown each of these installations of its abstractness, to make it concrete, to make it real, to borrow a phrase from these artists, to make sure that these artworks take flesh and blood, that there is a body that they can relate to. And that I was surprised with the way the farmers took to these artworks. I've had women coming up to me and saying, "But I hope everybody, after visiting the stalls, are also going through these installations, because once they go through it, once they take part in it, only they would realize how easy it is to communicate and how much it relates to their day-to-day living." So it's not finding beauty from a context and transporting it to the rarefied realm of art. It is basically art itself finding flesh and blood in the lived reality of these farmers. To me, personally, it has been an extremely humbling experience. It has also been a huge learning experience. And interestingly, while 5 of these artists were the principal movers of this project, some of us people who were on the sidelines, who were trying to facilitate in whichever way we could, were having our own immersion in the process. Now, we believe we are seeing the farming reality more intimately than these artists. We believe we are farmers ourselves, therefore we relate to it, as nobody else can. But in highlighting, amplifying, or in focusing on those things that basically reflect our own reality, there is a rediscovery of us that is happening in the process. And this has been not just humbling, it has been cleansing as well. Yes, the artists have come to our wounds to heal themselves. Our wounds are being healed in the process.
One important premise of this show, Let Me Come to Your Wound, Heal Myself, is that to come home, to come to our own body. Today for long, we have exiled from ourselves, learning things from outside to absorb things that is remotely connected to us. It has got its own relevance, but it's being at the cost of our own home, our own inner sensibilities, our own inner thinking. So this show, as a premise, we putting it across how we can honor the people who really deserve honor at this point in time. So the installations behind, it's called Custodian of Seats, where we have documented 11 people who for last few decades, as an individual effort, have been preserving certain varieties of certain species of the same kind of a tree. For example, jackfruit tree. Various native jackfruit tree, a person is being for many decades is being preserving and is being planting the public roads across Kerala. There's another person, he has made a collective through social media. People across Kerala is being participating with him and preserving native mango trees. And they have following people all across Kerala who've been preserving it. And there's somebody else, Vinod, he's been preserving now, as of now, he has got 420 varieties of banana trees growing it. These all individual efforts. It's not a state-funded thing, not an institutional-funded thing, but a spark in an individual heart that makes a difference for the life of the state here. So they are the real heroes. We felt if we need to honor at this point in time, with the kind of ecological issues we are facing in, with the kind of a rift within communities that we are facing in, with the kind of a tension within families, within individuals we are facing in, this kind of a honoring process is important to bring peace within ourselves, to hold our own inner sensibility tight, and grow together as a whole. So it is a pyramid to honor them. And yesterday we had a small gathering. Most of them were here yesterday, and many people listened to them, what motivated them doing it, how they go about doing it, and also their pains and their agonies doing it. But the joy they get preserving it.
രാജ്യങ്ങളിൽ ആശ്രയിക്കാതെ നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലെ നമ്മുടെ കർഷകരുടെ അടുത്ത് പോയി നമുക്ക് വിളകൾ വാങ്ങാനുള്ള ഒരു നമ്മുടെ ആഗ്രഹം.
പൈതൃക ദളിതർക്ക് സംരക്ഷണം. രാഷ്ട്രത്തോട് ഞാൻ പറയുന്നു, നല്ല വിത്ത്, നല്ല കൃഷി, നല്ല ബുദ്ധി പഠിച്ച് നല്ലൊരു ജനം രാജ്യത്തിനാണ്.
This is called the chair of seat keepers. The people who come here, they can go to the chair, assume themselves to have the power to take a decision to change the life of farmers and by which change the life of the country. And so people who come here, there's a simple form, they fill up the form to say that it's called Tell Yourself and Tell the Nation. So they take the form and say that to make a change in this life, in the country today, what you would do to yourself and what you would like to tell the nation.
കൃഷിയിടങ്ങളിലെ വന്യമൃഗശല്യത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് വായിക്കുകയും കേൾക്കുകയും ചെയ്തിരുന്നു. ഞങ്ങൾ ആ മണ്ണിലൂടെ നടന്നപ്പോൾ കണ്ടതിലും കേട്ടതിലുമെല്ലാം സംസ്കാരശൂന്യമായ ഒരു വിവേചനത്തിൻ്റെ കറപ്പാടുകൾ തെളിഞ്ഞു നിന്നു. വിവേകം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട വനനിയമങ്ങൾ വരുത്തിവെക്കുന്ന ദുരന്തങ്ങളുടെ അടയാളങ്ങൾ. കാടും കൃഷിയിടവും കർഷക സമുദായവും ഒരേപോലെ വനത്തെക്കുറിച്ചുള്ള ഒരു വൈകൃത ഭാവനയ്ക്ക് ഇരയാകുന്നത് ഞങ്ങളവിടെ കണ്ടു. ഈ ശബ്ദരേഖയിൽ അനുഭവങ്ങളും പരിഹാരങ്ങളും പങ്കുവച്ചത് വയനാട് ആക്ഷൻ കമ്മിറ്റി ടു പ്രിവെൻറ്റ് അറ്റാക്ക് ഓഫ് വൈൽഡ് ആനിമൽസ് ചെയർമാൻ ശ്രീ ടി.സി. ജോസഫ്, പേരാവൂർ പോലീസ് സ്റ്റേഷൻ സബ് ഇൻസ്പെക്ടറായി വിരമിച്ച ശ്രീ ജോസ് ജോസഫ്, ആറളം ഫാമിലെ ആദിവാസികളെ പ്രതിനിധീകരിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ശ്രീമതി നളിനി, ശ്രീ രാജൻ, വയനാട്ടിലെ പോർക്കടവിൽ നിന്നുള്ള തങ്കമ്മ, ശാന്തിഗിരിയിൽ നിന്നുമുള്ള ശ്രീ ജോജി, ലിനി, മൈക്കിൾ എന്നിവരാണ്.
സ്ഥലം കിട്ടി അന്ന് മുതൽ ഞങ്ങൾ ചേമ്പ് ചേനയൊക്കെ നട്ടുപിടിപ്പിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ ഇത് മധുരക്കിഴങ്ങെല്ലാം നട്ടുപിടിപ്പിച്ചാൽ പന്നി മാനും
When we, in the first years of our spending time with the farmers in the neighboring districts and other communities, this issue was not that prevalent for the farmers there. But when we came to this area, the farmers said that is one serious issue they've been facing is the issue of wild animals. We were not sure how we could go about it, but we requested them to take to the farms and to the people who are deeply affected by the wild animals. When we reached those places, it was agonizing how their farms are destroyed by various animals like elephants to porcupine. So it's not only the crops that get destroyed, so everything in the farm, be it as a shrub or as a tree or an animal, a cow or buffalo or goat or even human, any moment can be killed by these animals. They're living in terror, but at the same time they cannot move from that land because that is being home for many generations. It is an enigmatic relationship which we found. Later when we start looking into why these kind of a conflict is happening, which was not there 15 years ago. When we went into the data, one part of it is that now the preservation of strict laws by the state on the preservation of wild animals, which is very unrealistic. The ratio of the animal growth has many-fold has risen, and certain animals like wild boars and so on do not have predators anymore. The other part of it is the situation in the forest itself. When we looked into the statistics which was given by the forest department, about 30% of the forest comprise of eucalyptus, teak and acacia trees. And these things make animals unlivable in the forest. And apart from that, there are a lot of construction activities happening in the forest. And now, because of the control is not done, a lot of other very dangerous species are growing in the forest. This all make one side there is an increase in the population of the animals, and the other side a depleting forest and having no water because of the kind of acacia and teak growing in it, making the animals to come to a safe zone that is a farmland where they are not any more threat because of strict laws imposed by the state. And then the second part of it is that the compensation which is state calling it as a compensation, which is a mockery of the system. No way one can compensate for the losses. But even if you're trying to make a compensation, one need to go to a fair norms of understanding what could be the compensation. I'll give you 3 examples to give a gist of it. For example, a coconut tree. A coconut tree is grown in the farm, which grows about 75 to 80 years is the lifespan, and for which the person who planted the tree and his children and his children's children could have the yield from the coconut tree, which overnight being destroyed by an elephant would be given a compensation of 770 rupees as of now. And that 770 rupees they given as a compensation for a tree that gives yield for 3 generations to live is less than 1 day of unskilled laborers' wage. Other 2 examples I could say paddy, which is a seasonal crop. Seasonal crop, a hectare of paddy, which for the cultivation alone a farmer spends 62,000 rupees to 75,000 rupees. And the farmer expect a yield which cost about 1,60,000 rupees to 1,75,000 rupees. When 1 hectare of land which is destroyed, the farmer gets 11,000 rupees, which is about 6 to 7% of what the farmer loses in that. So these 2 examples, one is of a perennial crop and one is a seasonal crop. This is a situation with any crop that a farmer would lose. The people who are not farmers, they have a lot of prejudice about it. They think the farmers living very close to the forest. But when we spoke to the farmers, no farmers talked ill of the animals. They talked only about the policies of the state. They still know animals should survive. They still know the animals come there because they are hungry. They need to eat something. So they understand the relationship with their own life in relation to the animals. But what they're asking is a system that can put certain controls in the growth of it and the affectation these farmers are subject to.
മണ്ണിനോട്, വിത്തിനോട്, കിളിർപ്പിനോട് ചേർന്നു നിൽക്കുകയെന്നത് സാമാന്യ പ്രവൃത്തിയല്ല, ധീരത ആവശ്യപ്പെടുന്ന തീരുമാനമാണ്. ചിലപ്പോൾ വീണുപോയെന്നു തന്നെ വരാം. അധികാരവും പണവും പ്രശസ്തിയും മാത്രം ലാക്കാക്കുന്നവരുടെ ചെയ്തികൾക്ക് വഴങ്ങാൻ വിസമ്മതിക്കുമ്പോൾ പ്രത്യേകിച്ചും. ദൈവമേ, ജീവിതത്തിനുള്ള ധൈര്യം തരൂ എനിക്ക്, ഇതിനേക്കാൾ ധൈര്യം. മഴയ്ക്ക് ശേഷം മരമെന്ന പോലെ ഈ വേദനയ്ക്ക് ശേഷവും എനിക്കുണരണം, തിളക്കമാർന്ന് വീണ്ടും മനോഹരമായി. ദൈവമേ, ജീവിതത്തിനുള്ള ധൈര്യം തരൂ എനിക്ക്, ഇതിനേക്കാൾ ധൈര്യം. കാറ്റിലുലഞ്ഞ പുൽച്ചെടി പോലെ ദുഃഖങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നെനിക്ക് നിവരണം, ശാന്തമായ കണ്ണുകളോടെ നിന്റെ വഴികൾ പിഴക്കില്ലെന്ന തീർച്ചയിൽ. ദൈവമേ, ധൈര്യം, ഇതിനേക്കാൾ ധൈര്യം. ജീവിതം ഈ ഇരുട്ട് കൂടിയാണെന്ന ധൈര്യം, കാഴ്ച നീ തെളിക്കുമെന്ന ധൈര്യം, ഇരുട്ടിലും മിന്നുന്ന വെളിച്ചത്തെ ഉറ്റുനോക്കാൻ തുണയ്ക്കുമെന്ന ധൈര്യം.
മറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന ആകാശമുണ്ട് ഓരോ വിത്തിലും, ഒരു ചെടിയോ ഒരു മരമോ ആയിത്തീരാനുള്ള സ്വപ്നനിദ്ര. അമ്മയുടെ ഗർഭത്തിൽ കുഞ്ഞ് ഉറങ്ങിക്കിടക്കും പോലെ മണ്ണിനടിയിൽ വിത്തുകൾ പാർക്കുന്നു. അത്ര നിശബ്ദമായി, അത്ര നിഗൂഢമായി. വിത്തുകൾ ദീർഘമായ ഒരു കാത്തിരിപ്പിലാണ്. ഭൂമിയുടെ ഇരുട്ടിൽ തണുപ്പിൽ മയങ്ങിക്കിടക്കുന്ന പ്രാണൻ മഴ തൊടുമ്പോൾ സമാധിയിൽ നിന്നുണർന്ന് ശലഭം പോലെ എഴുന്നേറ്റ് കണ്ണുകൾ തുറന്ന് ഈ ലോകത്തെ ആശ്ചര്യത്തോടെ നോക്കുന്നു. പതുക്കെ പതുക്കെ വെയിലും വെള്ളവും തൊട്ട് പൂവും പരാഗവുമായി പടരുന്നു. പച്ചയുടെ ഉത്സവം തുടങ്ങുന്നു. ജീവികളെപ്പോലെ മനുഷ്യരെപ്പോലെ വിത്തുകൾക്കുണ്ട് ബോധാബോധങ്ങൾ, ഉറക്കമുണർച്ചകൾ, ധ്യാനം, നൃത്തം, രതി, മരണങ്ങൾ. വിത്തുകൾക്കുണ്ട് ഈർപ്പമുള്ള ഹൃദയം. മണ്ണിൽ പാർക്കുന്ന മനുഷ്യർ വിത്തുകൾ തൊട്ടുനോക്കുന്നു. അരുമയോടെ, അനുകമ്പയോടെ. ഇപ്പോൾ പിറന്ന കുഞ്ഞിനെ തൊടും പോലെ, മണ്ണിനെ തൊടുന്ന പോലെ. വിത്തുകളുടേത് ആദിമമായ ഒരു ഭാഷയാണ്, ഭൂമിയുടെ ഭാഷയാണ്, ജീവൻ്റെ ഭാഷ. വിത്തുകൾക്ക് കാതോർക്കുന്നവർ, മണ്ണിന് കാതോർക്കുന്നവർ ആ ഭാഷ പഠിച്ചവർ. ഒരു പിടി വിത്തുകളുമായി ഈ നനഞ്ഞ മണ്ണിലൂടെ നടക്കുന്നവർ ഭൂമിയുടെ നനവ് വറ്റാതെ കാക്കുന്നു, പ്രാണൻ വറ്റാതെ കാക്കുന്നു. ആ നടപ്പിൽ എല്ലാ മുറിവുകളും ഉണങ്ങുന്നു, മനുഷ്യരുടെയും ഭൂമിയുടെയും മുറിവുകൾ. ആ നടപ്പ് തന്നെ ഒരു സമരം, ഏകാന്തമായ ഒരു പോരാട്ടം, സഹനവും കരുണയും പ്രത്യാശയും നിറഞ്ഞ ഒരു പ്രാർത്ഥന, പ്രാണന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള പ്രാർത്ഥന.
മലവാഴ കുരുമുളക്